to order. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could remain standing for just a moment, I'd like to have a moment of silence and keep the people in the Middle East in our prayers with all that unrest taking place. They certainly need our prayers. Thank you very much. Time is allotted at the end of each meeting for the commissioners to receive comments from the public. We have some consent items. We have a regular session minutes dated October 31st, 2023. We have our liquor minutes dated October 31st, 2023. And we have Maryland Connected Devices Program Round 2 contract. So I entertain a motion of approval.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, Katie Wright, Economic Development Manager, Economic and Tourism Development, and she's here today for National Apprenticeship Week proclamation dated November the 13th to the 19th, the year 2023. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I just have a little bit of background information we wanted to share. The National Apprenticeship Week is a nationwide celebration where employers, industry associations, labor organizations, community-based organizations, workforce partners, education providers, and government leaders showcase the success of and value of a registered apprenticeship. Apprenticeships are instrumental in rebuilding our economy and building a pipeline to good quality jobs. This year's National Apprenticeship Week's theme is Registered Apprenticeship, Superhighway to Good Jobs. And this reflects the prominence that registered apprenticeship has received as a proven and industry-driven model that expedites the pathway into good jobs. Registered apprenticeship is recognized as a key strategy to improving job quality and creating access to good-paying jobs for all. It addresses some of our nation's pressing workforce shortages in teaching, advanced manufacturing, clean energy, cybersecurity, and other high-priority sectors. Dixon's Valve's apprenticeship program has been in place for over 20 years, and we're pleased to have Eric Lemon, who is the manufacturing training manager at Dixon Valve, present with us to accept this proclamation, and also recognize the impact that apprenticeships have had in advanced manufacturing in Kent County and beyond.
Very good. Could you have someone else you'd like to call up?
Yeah, we have Eric right here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Certainly appreciate the invite and to be here on behalf of Dixon Valve. As you well know, Dixon's over 107 years old. Moved here in 1976 into Chestertown from Pennsylvania, and I am the apprenticeship coordinator there as well as the manufacturing training manager. And one of the things that I'd like to point out about apprenticeship as it relates to the way that we do it at Dixon is that it is a competency-based program. So what that means is not only is this providing opportunities for jobs and career paths for employees, which I believe is important. It's not only important to have jobs, it's important to have a pathway whereby an employee can know how to grow within that respective career. And what competency does is it allows for skills to be verified on the shop floor. And so that's a little different than a 4-year, 8,000-hour program. This program is about a 2-year program with a couple of thousand hours on the shop floor, with the major difference being that every single step and milestone is verified as a competency step, which means there is a qualified trainer that will verify that that skill is being met at a professional level. And so that does two things. I already mentioned the first thing it does, which is allow for employee growth and development for a career. But the second thing that that does is it allows the organization to achieve value out of that skill that that individual possesses through that verification. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much. And 1976 was a good year for Kent County. I have a proclamation to read. It goes Kent County, Maryland proclamation entitled National Apprenticeship Week. Registered Apprenticeship, Superhighway to Good Jobs, November the 13th to the 19th, 2023. Whereas National Apprenticeship Week is celebrating its 5th anniversary of raising awareness of the vital role apprenticeships provide in creating a qualified and highly skilled workforce in diverse industries in Kent County, Maryland, and across the nation. And whereas the advancement and well-being of the United States of America depend upon the continued development of skilled workers in their chosen fields. And whereas there are more jobs openings than job seekers in the United States, and the expansion of apprenticeships will help bridge the skills gap to fill these jobs. And whereas Kent County, Maryland recognizes the robust apprenticeship programs provide tangible value to both job creators and apprentices, and with the potential to increase productivity, improve diversity and inclusion, and reduce recruitment and training costs while providing a pathway to prosperous careers for job seekers. And now, therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, do hereby proclaim November the 13th to the 19th, 2023 as National Apprenticeship Week in Kent County. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, and John F. Price, Member, dated November the 14th, 2023. And on behalf of the citizens of Kent County, it's our privilege to present you with this proclamation. And if you'd like, we can have a picture taken.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tom, Tom Yeager, our county attorney, go over some public hearing protocol.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a public hearing this morning on Code Home Rule Bill 5/2023. And again, this is the public hearing. This is the time for the commissioners to take comments. The commissioners are not going to vote on the proposed legislation today. That will happen at a future meeting. So with your permission, Mr. President, I will read into the record the notice for the public hearing. This is Code Home Rule Bill number 5/2023, introduced by Ronald H. Fithian, President of the Board of County Commissioners for Kent County, Maryland. An act to amend Chapter 222 zoning of the Code of Public Local Laws of Kent County, Maryland, also known as the Kent County Land Use Ordinance, in order to add a new land use and to permit said new use in certain districts as a special exception. One, by adding Section 14.5 Outdoor Retreat to Article 5 District Regulations, Section 3 Rural Character, Section 3.3 Special Exceptions. 2, by adding 15.5 Outdoor Retreat to Article 5 District Regulations, Section 4 Rural Residential, Section 4.3 Special Exceptions. 3, by adding 12.5 Outdoor Retreat to Article 5 District Regulations, Section 6 Community Residential, Section 6.3 Special Exceptions. 4, by adding 25.5 Outdoor Retreat to Article 7 Special Exceptions, Section 6 Procedures. 5, by adding specific conditions for the said new land use. 34.5 Outdoor Retreat to Article 7 Special Exceptions, Section 7 Special Exceptions. And 6, by adding a new definition under 227.5 Outdoor Retreat to Article 11 Definitions, Section 2 Definitions, and including one non-codified provision. A hearing will be held on November 14th, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Kent County Commissioners' Hearing Room, Mark Clayton Mitchell Jr., Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. The agenda for the meeting will be published online 24 hours in advance of the meeting at kentcounty.com/commissioners/meeting-agenda. Citizens are encouraged to participate in the public hearing process. If you require communication assistance, please contact the County Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 and press 4, or visit Maryland Relay at mdrelay.org no later than noon Thursday, November 9th, 2023. A complete copy of the proposed legislative bill is available in the Commissioner's Office, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30, and on the county's website at kentcounty.com/commissioners/draft-legislation. This is by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County, Sandra M. Blackiston Clerk, and it was published in the Kent County News on October 19th, 2023, and October 26th, 2023. And, Mr. President, as you can see, that this bill creates a new use, and it amends several provisions of your land use ordinance so that it's covered in more than one district and it's defined properly.
Tom, to be quite honest with you, I don't know a thing that you just said with all that.
Yeah,
So thankfully, we have
Bill Mackey.
Bill Mackey to
But-
come up and
but
give us a
I-
brief overview
I-
of what you just said.
I can tell you that we're adding outdoor retreat, and it's going to be put in different districts, so it's going to be put in different places in the code, and we have to define it, so it's going to go in the definitions section of the code as
You're
well.
way above me with that. Bill, go ahead. You
Before
want to
we
call him
do
forward,
that,
I'd appreciate you
believe-
having Bill Mackey come up.
Before Bill comes up, is there anybody else that's going to testify? I think, are you with the applicant? Yes. Okay. Is there anybody other than the applicant and Bill Mackey that's going to testify? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead then and read the procedures since we have people in the room other than the planning director that's going to testify. It is our desire that everyone who wishes to contribute to this democratic process is given a fair and uninterrupted opportunity to be heard. To ensure equal opportunity for individual input for the topic under discussion, certain rules must be followed by all persons who are to testify. The rules to govern our hearings are few, but are intended to guide our proceedings. The hope is that each person testifying will be self-governed, thereby contributing to fairness for all. The chair will remind anyone who testifies when he or she has violated the rules of the proceeding. Rule 1, please sign the testimony log if you desire to speak during the hearing. Rule 2, all speakers must identify themselves and use the area designated for purposes of testifying, and will use the microphone. Rule 3, each person testifying will have 3 minutes for his or her remarks. Rule 4, the chair will maintain order via voice commands. And Rule 5, stick to the issues at hand. The record will be left open after the hearing today, and written comments will be accepted until Friday, November 17th, this Friday at 12 p.m. noon, by email, kentcounty@kentgov.org, or by letter to the Kent County Commissioners, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, 21620. And for purposes of this hearing, we'll start with the Planning Director, Mr. Mackey, and then after Mr. Mackey, we'll hear from the applicant, and then after the applicant, anybody else who wishes to testify for or against will have the opportunity to speak. And of course, the commissioners may ask questions to anybody who is presenting before them. So, Mr. Mackey, you're up first.
And Tom, if we could, Ben, it's just a few people that's going to, so far.
You can
we'll-
waive the
we'll
3
waive
minutes.
the 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd rather understand what we got going on here.
I-
I do know some of it. I've been a little bit facetious about that, the reading, but that was pretty complicated. to listen to.
I would agree with you, and we can waive the technical compliance with the 3-minute rule, and if something is becoming excessively long, the chair can always
Right.
cut things off and move on.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mackey, you're up.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Proposed Code Home Rule Bill 5, 2023 is an applicant-initiated zoning text amendment. It would amend our land use ordinance to add a new land use called outdoor retreat to, in this bill, it's proposed for 3 districts: rural character, rural residential, and community residential, and it would also add specific conditions as well as a new definition to the code. To give an overview, originally the applicant submitted this language for 5 zoning districts, and staff spoke with the planning commission when they were doing their review, and we thought it was probably Village was not a good placement for it, and the agriculture advisory commission felt that AZD wasn't a good placement. So when we drafted the bill, we reduced it to 3 districts. But the use is very close to as proposed. The applicant made some changes based on Planning Commission input to the specific conditions. And on July 6th and August 3rd, the Planning Commission held a public hearing. They reviewed this item and made recommendations. A letter is in your packet from the Planning Commission. And on September 6th, the Agriculture Advisory Commission reviewed the proposed text amendment, and also their letter is in your packet. And then October 3rd, this body voted to introduce this bill in order to have a public hearing, and this item today is presented for public hearing. And I know the applicant would like to talk about the use and sort of explain what's being proposed. There are a variety of occasions when there isn't a specific use within our code that would allow someone to go forward, so that's what the zoning text amendment process is for. New uses can be considered by the Board of County Commissioners to be added to our zoning code in specific areas. And when staff looked at this original proposal, almost all of our lodging uses are related to some sort of existing building or a single structure. It would, when you read it, it appears that everything's sort of designed for a single facility. And this is a new idea, the idea that there would be a variety of structures and options for people to come and stay and perhaps have activities. So what I would like the applicant to be able to explain what they would like to do. So, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Morning.
Commissioners. I'm Lance Young, and with me is Sandra Donnelly. She's the applicant. And yeah, my job is to try to help you understand in lay terms what it is that's being proposed, so I'll fill in those gaps. We are asking to amend the Kent County ordinance to add outdoor retreat as a special exception use in what is now dwindled down to 3 different zones in the county. We keep talking about, I keep hearing the word new use, but it's sort of a new use, but the reason that we're introducing this is because it's pretty close to other uses that we already have in the ordinance. So what happened was Mrs. Donnelly, she came to the Office of Planning and Zoning. She had a proposal for her property, and it almost fit in the country inn category, but not quite. It almost fit in the retreat category, but not quite. It almost fit in the bed and breakfast category, but not quite. So we had to introduce something that was brand new that it would work for. But what she's introducing is something that is growing in popularity, not just in the country, but around the world. Kent County already has, a lot of these kinds of destinations. It does have a lot of good bread and breakfast. It does have good country inns. It does have good retreats. What we're looking for is something that caters to people who are looking for more of an outdoor experience. And so what Mrs. Donnelly has proposed for her property and what we are proposing with this text amendment is something that caters to small groups, family groups, where they can enjoy the outdoors of Kent County, and they can do that in an outdoor type of setting. The basic features of what we're proposing is that it would be, again, catered towards small groups, families, where they could have what would be called like a family retreat. And it would involve not a single hotel unit or a country inn unit that you might think of, but it would have individual cabins or individual pods or single unit bedrooms. And I think what we have dwindled down, I don't remember if we're down to 10 or 15 is what we ended up with in our proposal. But it would be a minimum of that. So we're only talking about 10 or 15 units. The property itself would be, Mrs. Donnelly, she would want hers to be themed. It doesn't have to be themed. It could be anything. It could include outdoor activities, so that the people who are visiting those sites could have outdoor activities that they do on the site. But it will fill in the gap for people who want to enjoy that outdoor experience in Kent County, but but want something a little bit different from those other types of experiences. This is being added as a special exception use in the ordinance, which means that it will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, depending on whether or not the property is appropriate, whether or not the project is appropriate. The Planning Commission and the Board of Appeals would be able to evaluate those projects on a case-by-case basis. Like I said, there's a public need for this because this is something that is growing in popularity. I've talked to other people other than Mrs. Donnelly who think that this would be a good opportunity for their properties as well. And like I said, it is growing in popularity in the country and around the world for these types of outdoor experiences. We believe that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. Some of the goals of the comprehensive plan are to increase tourism and economy, and we hope that this will bring additional tourism and economy on a smaller level to Kent County. A sub-goal of the comprehensive plan is to support existing businesses, and we believe that people who come to these types of activities, these types of destinations like the one Ms. Donnelly proposes for her property, that they'll also visit other restaurants and other shops around the county. The comprehensive plan has a strategy of identifying and developing year-round attractions, and we believe that this type of destination would be exactly that. And it's also consistent with the comprehensive plan strategy of maintaining a rural small-town character. The types of projects that would be allowed under this proposal would be small projects, and they would be rural in character, so we believe that it's consistent with that as well. And is there anything that I missed, anything you want to bring
I
up?
think you got everything. I mean, it's basically a higher end of camping, because it's not going to be tents, it's not going to be RVs, it's going to be like individual hotel rooms, just spaced out. I happen to have 30 acres that is free and clear, so I'm only going to put 10 on there. I don't really know what else. I think you kind of got everything.
This does not allow for tents.
No.
It's
No
Cabins
tents, no
or
RVs. They will be
some type
hooked
of
up to
constructed-
electricity and water and have its own entrance and,
Yeah.
Will there be, in these cabins, are they going to have water and sewer available in the cabin, or you have a central place?
my plan is to have minimal water in the cabin, just like a sink for running water, because I'm gonna do bathhouses that have showers and toilets.
I think that-
sporadic.
And I think that the way that it's defined now as a proposal is that it could or it could not. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
broad enough to where it could be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But what I would envision is think about maybe 10 types of units that are around in a circle with kind of a central dining facility where the guests could enjoy and their dining facilities together, maybe a single bathroom, bathhouse where they can all enjoy that. But that type of a facility.
I guess one question I would have, you've already heard that it's been asked that this not be allowed in Village or AZD. Is that a problem for your project?
It's not a problem for Mrs. Donnelly's project. I personally don't understand why the AZD zone would be problematic, but it doesn't impact her project, and she's the applicant, so.
Any question?
I guess, yeah, I got a lot of questions. But the one that pops to the top of my head is structurally, what would prohibit someone from putting 10 or 15 on their property and it being used, or maybe it isn't prohibited? There's a question. You're saying this is a retreat. What would prohibit this becoming a 10-unit permanent village?
One of the conditions that are placed on here in the definition now is that it would be limited to staying for 2 weeks. So guests would be limited to 2-week stays.
And that is in our zoning already, is that correct?
No,
or-
in what's being proposed here.
Okay.
Is there any
That's-
but enforcement on that?
Right.
'Cause we've had campgrounds that have come up that have been, I think, seasonal and have kind of evolved into year-round campgrounds.
Right.
Is there any, maybe Mr. Mackey can chime in on this with respect to how would the 2-week time period be enforced, other than honor
It would be
system?
on the county, and that's one
Yeah, and how
more.
would it be enforced anywhere? I mean, someone could have a field, not have any permission, throw up 20 tents. How do you enforce that with no permission?
Well, that's the question I'm
Yeah, so, I
posing to you.
mean,
And it's.
anything
but
can
But well, hopefully not, that's why
Yeah.
we're here. And, I mean, the question is what do we do? I mean, then it would be on the county to enforce that, which would be an added cost for the citizens.
I guess I'm thinking of it just like as a basically hotelier or whatever. It's just my hotel isn't one building, it's going to be 10 different ones. And how would I enforce that if people wouldn't leave? I guess I'd call the police. I mean, you know,
I mean, I think that would be enforced the way any zoning violation is enforced, is that citizens can make complaints to that, and if that's If it's being used for longer than 2 weeks, then that would be an extended or expanded use that wouldn't be allowed under the county or zoning ordinance, and it would be handled the way any zoning infraction would be handled.
And as it stands now, does the health department or any other department, do they do yearly inspections? Do they do, to enforce those kind of things, to make sure I'm doing what I'm doing?
I think it's essentially a short-term rental.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would be, I would take it would be subject to the hotel tax that the county
Right.
has as a short-term rental. So there would be reporting requirements and everything in that regard. So that may be a way to kind of keep track of it through that, which is not
I mean,
necessarily
I
a
certainly
zoning
don't
issue,
want-
but that's a way it could be monitored because of the hotel
I'm not
tax
doing
collection.
this so I can have low-income housing in my backyard. I mean, that's not what I'm going for. I'm not going to be putting out the kind of money I'm putting out to accomplish that.
And my other concern, just because we've had these issues pop up in the past, is just simply the noise that something like this generates. And I know, you're
Yeah.
going to say it's going to be quiet.
Well, no,
and we're gonna,
on my property, it's
but-
not an opinion because I have 40 acres and I have no neighbors.
Right.
Now, that could be,
Well, right, and that's,
Yeah.
and I see what you're saying. I mean, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know where your property is, but maybe it's the perfect location. But if we
Right.
put our stamp of approval on it, then it's
I
not
think they
just-
did have something about setbacks in there.
And because this is being introduced into the ordinance as a special exception use, projects would be
I
evaluated on a
understand, you're right,
case-by-case
and that,
basis.
yes, I appreciate that.
Right,
I just-
this is a text amendment, so it would apply not just to your property,
Right.
but anyone in the zoning districts where this would be allowed or a special exception would be able to apply.
Apply.
Yeah, so I think that,
Apply, but not approved.
right, and I think that explains the commissioner's questions, because it's not necessarily, I think it's interesting to hear about your project, because this will be the first one.
Right.
But there could be other projects from other landowners of this type of use.
And the length of, and the length of time that it is allowed for someone to be able to stay at one of your, those
It
2
will be
weeks?
2 weeks, but I can't see them staying more than 2 or 3 days, but that's,
Any questions, John?
To follow up on what Albert said, really, as far as the enforcement bill, when it comes to someone violating the ordinance, overstaying. Because if you read it in the news, there's unfortunate cases where people have rented certain short-term rentals or homes or whatever, and they get somebody in there and they refuse to leave. Well, there's a legal process that has to take place. Calling the police is not going to do a whole lot. Although it seems like it would, because you would think that the police would have the authority to say, hey, you're not paying, you're not, you're basically squatting in this building, but there's not a whole lot we can do until we get eviction papers. So is there something in the code currently that would allow for a eviction to take place?
Well, as I understand it, evictions are something that comes from the private side, the property owner would pursue that. We
Right.
would pursue it as a violation. So our process is, we are complaint driven, so we receive the complaint, an officer would go to the property, see if there's any easily seen visible evidence that the violation of whatever nature is occurring. Generally, we like to reach out with a phone call to begin with to say, hey, are you aware that this is happening? And sometimes that resolves it. If not, then we send a letter, and if that doesn't resolve, we send a follow-up letter with a citation as a fine, and if that doesn't resolve it, then we meet with counsel and go to court.
My thought on this would be, if, let's say there's a violation, and there's somebody at one of the outdoor retreats who stays beyond 2 weeks and doesn't leave, and it comes to our attention, and Mr. Mackey's doing enforcement. If the property owner says to Mr. Mackey, I'm aware of this problem, I've hired my lawyer, we've filed in district court to evict the tenant, and we're taking all the necessary legal steps to get the tenant out of there, and they show that to Mr. Mackey. It seems to me that what Mr. Mackey's office would do, or what my recommendation would be, is that we kind of hold the enforcement in abeyance, because the property owner is doing everything they can to get the holdover out of there, and then we continue to follow up to make sure it's working through the legal process, which may take time, but if the property owner is actively seeking to get that person out of there, we're good. If the property owner is uncooperative or says they're gonna do something and strings us along and doesn't do anything, then we go forward with the enforcement, as Mr. Mackey just discussed.
And I don't think landlord-tenant law would even come into play at all. I don't
Because
think.
it's short-term rental?
Yeah, I wouldn't even view this as a short-term rental. I would view it exactly the same way that you would view a country inn, the way that you view the Great
They're
Oak Manor.
trespassing and you kick them out?
Well, I mean, I don't.
Well, you also have to think
If
of,
somebody's a guest at your country inn, I don't think you have to file landlord-tenant eviction because they stayed over 2 or 3 days longer than they're supposed to stay. That's a commercial venture, it's a commercial rental, and landlord-tenant laws wouldn't apply, I wouldn't think.
I guess you,
I think
one of those things, if
I
you
think
do,
maybe not.
it depends on what the tenant, the person there.
I also think
does,
we're
I mean-
probably talking about two different things. We're talking about a proprietor who is allowing basically, like a rental situation, like housing, or you're talking about a guest who refused to leave.
Well, I think
So-
it's a short-term rental. It's like a hotel
Yeah,
or an
exactly.
Airbnb or.
And just
or what-
logistically, how would someone stay longer? They'd run out of food. They'd have to leave. Like, there's nothing, I just,
I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah.
things do occur, things
Okay.
happen. I mean,
Oh,
people
in the
squat in
village.
hotel rooms, I mean, and it becomes problematic, it does happen.
I think the same thing applies to what we have like now is with our campgrounds and stuff. You're only allowed to stay, so it's a rental situation, not a long-term you're not supposed to be there for a long period of time.
You know, I see this because they're gonna be individual units. It's really not the same as, in my opinion, as a country inn, where you have rooms within one basic structure. I like the idea. Always have liked the idea. In fact, I even tried to talk my wife into going up north and actually staying in one of these places. But it was a little too rustic for her.
well, that's
So-
why we want to have it where they're cabins with electricity and heat and,
You know, and certainly we want to encourage folks to come here and enjoy the beautiful lands of Kent County. But we don't want to create problems. And I still think Albert brings up a good point, that if you have somebody that's in this individual cottage or cabin, whatever you want to call it, you may have trouble getting them out of there if they don't want to leave.
I honestly don't think I will,
Well, I hope you don't.
you know?
If
And,
the- if in fact there's
basically, any business could have any kind of unforeseen problem come up.
Because that eviction process that we've had just basically touched on, it's not something that happens within a week's time or 10 days or, you know.
Oh, I know, but like I
It's a
said, you have
45
someone,
to 60-day process, minimal probably.
you have someone in a cabin, which the only way in and out of, we could take care of because we have one access and it's our property. They're gonna run out of food. If you get the worst person in the world, first of all, they're gonna have to give us a credit card in order to be there to begin with. And then, if you have the worst case scenario, they're gonna run out of food. They're gonna have to leave. They're gonna have to leave the cabin to use a bathroom. They're gonna, they're just,
The only reason why I bring it up is to avoid, if there's a solution or a clause that we can put in or something else to protect you and the county, then I think that this is the appropriate time to even consider it, or at least talk about it. I guess that's why I brought it up too.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's-
understand
mean,
that.
you-
I understand that,
You can
but-
click on this computer or any TV show or news
Yeah,
channel
and
tonight,
every business
you're
can
gonna
have
see
an unforeseen
all
problem,
of
and there's
these-
nothing,
these nightmarish issues that people are having to deal with. And the other one is that I just think that, you know, and I'm not saying you in particular, but, you know, there's going to be people who try to skirt the law in that gray area, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Just for curiosity, where exactly, if you don't mind, where exactly is your property?
I'm in Millington. You know where the old Howard Johnson is and the
Yes.
new food, oh, no, it's not new anymore, the Food
Food Lion.
Lion? I'm kind of like on the other side of that.
Across from Jolio, is it Jolio Farms? There's a mulch farm there?
I don't, I'm right off of 301
Okay.
and Millington Road. So if you go down where Howard Johnson's is on your right, go down to the stop sign, make a right, and then big, it's a 3-story brick building.
the old horse farm.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's me.
So the bathhouse,
Well, there'll be more than one, and they'll be sporadic, because we have to have so many for so many guests. And,
is that gonna be supported by a private septic system, or do you have, public
no,
sewer?
private well and septic.
Okay.
That, we don't have it, we're not hooked up to anything now.
And for her project, Tom Davis at DMS is currently doing a site plan, and that would go under, it would be subject to site plan review, assuming that this was passed, and she would have to apply for that special exception herself.
Is this year-round, or is this just a?
I would like it to be year-round, because we're gonna have heat and air in each of the cabins. And I know there will probably be times, I mean, I don't really know what kind of response I'm gonna get.
I didn't know whether you were designing it
Yeah.
for a certain.
Yes, they will each have heat and air conditioning, so I would like it to be year-round, mainly so we could do different Christmas decorations, Halloween, fall decorations, Easter, that kind of thing.
And there's nothing in the proposed text that talks about seasonality
Right.
or
That's,
number of
I didn't
months.
see that.
Just curiosity. I'm just curious. You have a horse farm? Or you have horses?
I have horses.
Are you gonna offer horseback riding there?
We will probably we have a petting zoo, and we will have horses that are smaller for children to ride. My husband always wanted to have breeding horses, and he had thoroughbreds, and that didn't pan out. And right now, the property is kind of just being wasted. It's just sitting there, and it kind of just bothers me that I've got a 30-acre field that's just sitting there. So,
I know I've asked some off-the-wall questions.
No,
but
that's fine.
I'm just curious about your project.
yeah, so, yeah, we will,
I like the
mean,
concept.
yeah, we're gonna have, we have a petting zoo. We already have like miniature horses and donkeys and,
Do you want to go ahead and tell them more what you have proposed, or what you want to do?
well,
She has to now.
yeah, I mean, that,
You don't have
no, I mean, that's kind of it. It's just, my husband loved this property, and he passed away. So I'm kind of doing this in his honor. And that's that.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you for being patient with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, you gonna call? You wanna call
I
the
don't
next
have the list, but anybody that's signed the
has it.
list, oh, Sandra has it, and she can,
We have one person that signed the
Ms. Janet
testimony
Christensen.
log, and it's Miss Janet Christensen Lewis.
I would have much preferred to do a phone call today, but apparently you don't allow that any longer. and I felt like this was important enough for me to be here. My name is Janet Christensen Lewis, and I live in Millington. And I want to make 2 points before I refer to my written statement. I think Mrs. Donnelly's idea of this project is not what you should be considering, because whatever it is she wants to do, you don't know what other people in the county are going to do and how responsible they might be. And I understand it's a special exception, but whatever her sense of this text amendment is not about Mrs. Donnelly, number one. Number two, I think it was important that you listened to Bill Mackey when he stated very emphatically that their enforcement process is driven by complaints. If the landowner, or if nobody there, I mean, if this is on some property and the residents don't complain, or the landowner doesn't complain, and you've got people kind of coming, going on the property that don't live here. I mean, other renters wouldn't complain about it. They wouldn't care how long somebody was staying. You will never know that somebody is living there permanently. So, although I'm sure Mrs. Donnelly would never allow that to happen, you don't know what other people in the county might be gaining access to this particular text amendment that applies to all properties within these districts, and what they might do and how they might envision what's going on. And with that said, I'm going to read a statement. The proposed land use ordinance, outdoor retreats, originates from the vision of a Kent County resident aiming to establish a glamping campground. However, it's crucial to recognize that the impact of this ordinance extends beyond the individual property owner. It encompasses all rural residential, rural character, and community residential properties throughout the county. Outlined below are several concerns regarding this ordinance. Enforcement challenges, which we've just talked about. The enforcement of outdoor retreats involved overseeing various aspects such as occupancy, duration of stay, unit conditions, bathhouses, kitchens, and noise levels, among others. The Department of Planning and Zoning, responsible for code enforcement, currently lacks the necessary resources to oversee existing zoning codes and site plans in the county. Introducing this zoning ordinance would impose additional responsibilities on an already stretched department. It's essential to evaluate whether the potential tax income from these outdoor retreats would be sufficient to hire new enforcement officers, or if there's a risk of widespread violations due to insufficient oversight. And I do want to say that Anne Arundel put in it's not even seasonal. They allow for camping on agricultural grounds, and there's a limit on how many days that they can do. And they require that their Department of Planning and Zoning report back to the commission yearly with a log of everybody that stayed on the properties. And they have to do that continuously every year, report back with a list. So they were worried enough about it that they put in a fairly strict at least for length of stay and how many people were utilizing it. They put in a length of stay and a log that has to be authorized by the planning department and filled out by the people that are doing the properties. Second, it is tax considerations. It's unclear what tax implications glamping campgrounds would have. Clarity on tax considerations associated with this campground is essential for the comprehensive understanding of their impact on county revenues. And I'm not just talking about hotel tax, which I know you guys are already with Airbnb having difficulty kind of keeping track of that and making sure that we're getting those revenues. But also, does this have an impact on the actual, I mean, right now, I don't know what the tax is on this property or other properties, but will it be taxed at a different rate? Because this is really kind of a commercial enterprise that's being put onto that property. So will that be included? Will that be annual tax, land tax on the property? And I'm not sure that those considerations have been considered. Health department involvement. The health department's perspective on the ZTA is critically important, especially regarding septic considerations for what could essentially become small villages. Increased population density resulting from 15 cabins, which is the maximum, with an occupancy of 4 each, which is the maximum for each cabin in this particular, 2 adults and 2 children, each raises concerns about traffic, car traffic, noise, and the impact on existing infrastructure. That basically increases a neighborhood's residential capacity to 60 from where it was before. All of a sudden, you build this, and they could have, if all the cabins are occupied with that, you could have up to 60 new people kind of wandering around in these neighborhoods. And also the other thing, Mrs. Donnelly is case in point, what is the future of sewer hookups for annexed properties? Because she's in a zone that is due to be annexed by Millington, which would then be served. And how many Millington had a discussion about this at one of their recent meetings. They're trying to decide how many hookup allocations are going to be necessary for even if you just put an in-law residence in your backyard. How many hookups are going to be? This hasn't even been kind of sussed out here in terms of what's going to happen. Abandonment protocol. Clear and explicit conditions for project abandonment must be established. And by that I mean that it goes for some period of time with having no renters coming in. The project fails and the landowner is unable to generate any income from those properties. So abandonment protocol needs to be a well-defined requirement for removal of structures. This is imperative to mitigate potential consequences, including the risk of buildings deteriorating into dilapidated state or the possibility of the site transforming into a homeless encampment, which may not draw the attention of somebody to complain about it to the planning and zoning for them to bring in their enforcement officer. And finally, lack of fundamental parameters. Addressing these potential outcomes is crucial for the long-term integrity and welfare of the community. The amendment lacks essential parameters, such as the total footprint of all buildings, the definition of adequate landscaping, and the determination of sufficient acreage as for proposed use and activities. Consequently, this amendment raises concerns about placing commercial structures in residential neighborhoods, as there seems to be little distinction between proposing a glamping campground and a conventional motel. In light of these concerns, I respectfully request that the Commission reject Code Home Rule Bill number 5/2023, unless at some future date much of this could be addressed.
Thank you. One of the questions that I had, Lance, if you,
Am I allowed to speak again?
sure,
Okay, and I'll keep it short.
you're fine.
I think a lot of the concerns are worst-case scenarios, and I understand that. However, we're talking about a broad term here that we need so that we could then go with our individual ideas, just like the next guy can come with his individual ideas. And they would be either approved or denied. So if you come up with someone who you feel is in more of a neighborhood and is going to be more of a concern as far as noise and traffic and all that, they could be denied. My property isn't going to have that problem, which if I come with my application and they say no, then that could also be denied. So I think a lot of these are going to be specific. I certainly expect my taxes to be reevaluated. It's right now either agriculture or residential or rural residential or whatever, and then it will now be another term and it'll be under whether commercial or whatever. And as far as everything else is the bathhouses and the kitchens and the tax for the hotel tax, I would expect that you have things in place to audit and inspect, to keep me in line. Just like if I were opening any other kind of business. So,
I think that hotel tax thing or Airbnb thing is a moving pendulum that we're trying to
Right.
corral.
Yeah.
And that's not your fault or has
no,
nothing to do with this
I
project.
mean, not that this has, I mean,
But I would imagine.
I am not doing this for profit, which the next guy will be.
Right.
So I just think, and if I'm required to show financials in order to get approval, I'm willing to do that. But I just think a lot of these situations are devil advocate thing, and I understand you have to think about them. But I think that's also what will come up when each individual applicant goes with their site plan to get approved.
I guess I would agree with you. I mean, with what you're spelling out here, I think it's a great idea as well. But the broader spectrum is, again, we have to think about the next guy and/or even the next guy at your property. I mean, you know, whenever
Right,
that
yeah,
happens, they're probably not going to be as, or I shouldn't say, I was going to say as straightforward and nice. But I would also think that, and maybe this is a question for staff, but I would imagine, I mean, all of our properties, I doubt that you would get a different designation because you're not asking for that right now. Is that correct, as far as your
okay.
zoning?
What kind of
So
designation?
there's two issues here. One is the actual district in our code, and the other is how it's assessed for tax purposes, which is done by SDAT. What they use is the use.
Right.
They don't care
Right.
about our districts.
That's what I was
and our
saying.
zones.
That's-
Okay,
So I
yeah,
would
right,
imagine that, you know, my point being is that, you know, we're all assessed by our improvements. Obviously, when you improve your property, you're going to be assessed at a higher level.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and I know you're not,
I'm not expecting to pay the kind of taxes I pay on an
Except
empty
I don't think
field
that
when
you're-
I have a business going. And
But-
as far as like septic and all that, I could always agree to not hook up. You know, I mean, from what I hear, and I'm sure it's just rumors, they're talking about trying to put warehouses up. They're gonna use a lot more people and whatnot than I
What happens
would.
is if the area's in town and it's serviced by a municipal system, if you abut a line, there's generally a mandatory hookup because that's a requirement of the USDA and federal funding. And I can't predict, if there's no main that goes by your property, then you probably would not have to be able to hook up and probably couldn't hook up. But if it's served by municipal water and sewer and there's a main abutting your property, chances are that you're gonna have, it's not something that's your choice, you're gonna have to hook up.
Right.
It's the way these things typically work.
that's all I have.
Did you have a question?
I don't have any questions. I think a lot of the ifs that could be applied to almost any new business that come before. So I'm not, I mean, campgrounds today in Kent County, they have the same limited time that people can visit their campground. They're not supposed to be long-term rentals. And, I mean, a lot of that stuff's already in place with a lot of stuff. So I don't, yeah, I do have one question. And when I read a little bit about it, it said you're going to allow, say, husband and wife and 2 kids. I have 3. I got to leave one home.
Yes, you do.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous, but
Well-
the first thing when I read it, I thought, damn, I
Well,
got
it's
to pick
like any
between the one
hotel
I'm going to
room.
leave home and the 2 I'm going to
Maximum.
take. I'll be in the doghouse.
It's a
That's easy.
maximum
You got one
occupancy
you don't
per
want to take
unit.
it.
Yeah.
So if you have a large family, you
Well,
have to
I
rent
probably
it
got
out.
one that I
Just
would
like
leave
you'd have to
home,
have 2 hotel rooms.
but most people wouldn't.
Yeah, my original draft didn't have that. That was kind of what it came out with after the planning commission process. I would prefer to have a broader definition than that, but I think they wanted an occupancy of,
When I read over some of the proposal, and the only thing that I highlighted was that piece that, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that just means if you have 3 kids, you got to rent 2 units instead of 1.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, I mean, it's just like a hotel room. I mean, you know, there's 2 beds in there and that's all you're allowed.
maybe it would be
and-
restricted to family members or
Right.
something, but
Yeah.
to put a limit on it, that seemed to be a little
I
a
just,
little
yeah.
odd. Now, in
Commissioner
my
Fifty
case,
can
I
send
got
his
one that
family,
I
but he
would
has
leave
to
home.
stay home.
But most people wouldn't do that.
Yeah, either of my kids would want to go anyway, so.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Bill. Bill, in the text here that Tom read, I don't see anything in there, and maybe I've missed it, that this is just for 2 weeks only.
Correct. That's the maximum.
Maximum
length of stay.
occupancy.
That is in there.
Yes.
Yeah, that is in item
That-
G
That's just to
30.
do with the outdoor retreats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Commissioner, it's 34.5G. The use and occupancy of the guest units is inherently transient, and guest occupancy shall be limited to 2 weeks. There shall be a maximum occupancy of 2 adult guests and 2 additional children guests in each unit.
Commissioner, you're correct that it's not part of the requirements of the definition or the use, but it's one of the conditions the Board of Appeals would impose.
Okay. And I would just like to let Ms. Janet know that the county is working on a software solution that will probably be implemented within 3 or 4 months maybe, to actually address the short-term rental tax revenue collection. Not just for the county, but for all the municipalities as well. And it's a very extensive, good program that it's going to be very, very difficult to get around.
And to be clear, it's not just short-term rentals, it's all hotel tax. Anybody that qualifies to pay hotel tax will be paying through this software.
They'll be identified and automatically, and it's a software program, which is a good thing.
Any other questions? And we'll leave comment period to be open till Friday, close of business on Friday. And then it'll be brought up at a legislative day for a vote.
All right, well, we appreciate your thoughtful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I'd like to move to close the public hearing for proposed Code Home Rule 5-2023, and for the record to remain open until the close of business on Friday, November 17th.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Next appointment, Joshua Thomas, Restoration Specialist, Wetland, Stream, Wildlife Habitat, and Agricultural Conservation Consulting. The issue, Turner Creek Stream Restoration, Phase 2 Ravine Stabilization.
Got one question for you. How tall are you? 6'7".
6'7". Okay, I think that was the tag on my email that they just read. It's like a resume.
Well, welcome here today.
Thank you.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate it, appreciate the time. And I think we've been here a few times, so, or I have anyway, to discuss Turner's Creek. And we initially came for Phase 1, which was the restoration of the approximately 2,500 linear feet, the main stream channel on county property. And we completed that restoration work last fall, and looks great. It's very stable. If you guys ever get a chance to go out, it's worth a walk down in the woods. Wetlands are reestablished. I think Ecotone did the work. Matt Drennan, who's with me today, he's one of the main designers for Ecotone, and they did an awesome job on that project. So I think we had come back and talked to you all last fall about doing a Phase 2 for this project, which would be going in and repairing or stabilizing the lateral head cuts that are forming off of that main channel. So kind of the idea is that those ravines that have, what happens is head cuts form and they migrate backward into a slope. So
Wasn't there an issue that come up when you come back for that? That wasn't approved or something? Was there something that that we tried to do up there that didn't take place?
No, we did, so we did the phase one work.
Okay.
That's completed. And then we come back to so we were applying for the money to do the design and permitting for phase two. And you guys gave us a letter of support for that.
Okay.
And that's what we're just about done completing all of our permitting right now. So now we have to go back and it's a multi-step process.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now we're applying to DNR. So that's essentially why we're here. We're applying in December for funding through the state to do the restoration work on the second phase, which would be stabilizing the ravines. And about half of those ravines are on county property and about half of them are on the adjacent private property. So we would need a letter of support from both you all and from the private landowner adjacent to attach to our application to DNR for the funding. So, yeah, so I guess, yeah, Matt's going to give you, I guess, a brief presentation on the details. And I don't really know how much you guys, need to know or want to know, but we've got lots of slides, so he's going to go through them as quick as possible, and you guys can, stop us as needed if that works for you.
Sure. Good morning. And we did weed through quite a few of these slides here, so I think we have an abbreviated presentation as we go through this, but there are more slides available for review after that. So just to briefly touch on what Josh said there, the project is located in Kennedyville, which is northern Kent County, and it's an environmental stabilization restoration project. The goals and objectives. So our overall goal is to reduce erosion and create ecologically diverse ephemeral stream corridors with long-term benefits to the landowners and the environment. We're looking to design for long-term stability, and we are looking to achieve desired landowner functionality while also providing a diverse habitat opportunities to the maximum extent practicable. A few ways that we're looking to do this is we're going to significantly reduce the existing bed and bank erosion by spreading flow across a wide valley bottom. We're going to create a dynamically stable floodplain with sufficient width to disperse flows and maintain sustainable shear stress and velocity. And we're going to try to promote wetland development in the areas where the groundwater interaction is within 18 inches of the restored floodplain. Next slide. So just to give a brief synopsis of the existing conditions, like Josh said, it's about 4,052 linear feet of ephemeral channels, which means they don't have active flow in them typically. They only get flow during major storm events. We did conduct a visual assessment in the fall, September 18th, where we identified potential sediment and debris sources, degradation and depositional areas, extents of the head cuts, and regional and localized impacts throughout the stream corridor that may influence the long-term stability of the project reach. There are 4 total reaches that we're proposing restoration on, and we have, confusingly enough, named them Ravine 2, Ravine 4, Ravine 5, and Ravine 6. A few of the ravines that we have evaluated fell through the process due to the impacts to the natural resources and the limits of the actual erosion themselves when we did our assessment. The project reaches have vertically degraded with banks that are comprised of exposed soils that continue to erode. They're disconnected from the floodplain. All the reaches are highly incised and show signs of both lateral and vertical instability with bank erosion, root exposure, and leaning and fallen trees. As we go through some of these pictures here, you can see this is Ravine 2, and there are a few pictures here showing the head cuts and the active erosion. The picture in the lower left-hand corner shows a lot of the deposition from the banks that has starting to spill out to the valley bottom and then out to our restoration site, which is the receiving restoration area. The receiving restoration area, phase 1 restoration area, is the unnamed tributary to Turner's Creek, which spills into Turner's Creek, and then again goes into the Sassafras River before entering the Chesapeake Bay. Next slide. So Ravine 4, Ravine 2, just to recap, is 1,430 linear feet. Ravine 4 is the central reach on the western side of the unnamed tributary to Turner's Creek. It consists of 2 sub-reaches and totals approximately 1,313 linear feet. And again, it's just showing, our photos are showing some of the extent of the lateral degradation and sediment deposition towards the receiving tributary. Again, just another photo. You can see in the lower right-hand corner, the extent of the deposition. That's about 6 inches to a foot of sand that's been deposited from the bank material that's then deposited into the channel and filled it up. In all of these ravines, the vertical degradation was somewhere up to 25 to 30 feet if you're standing at the bottom of the valley looking up to the top. And then this is Ravine 6. It was added on during our visual assessment. It's a newly formed head cut channel that developed after the completion of the Phase 1 restoration, and it's currently dumping sediment to the newly established wetlands within the Phase 1 floodplain. The banks are approximately 6 feet in the worst head cut area. Next slide, please. So, as far as our proposed design approach, the design strategy is to stabilize the existing head cuts and create a stable stage 0 head cut or headwater system. So stage 0 meaning that this is at the highest end of the watershed. We're planning to balance all earthwork on site, and our current restoration plans show that we're not leaving the site with any material, and we're not going to be having to place it anywhere on the upland areas. Everything will remain in the ravines as we push some of the slopes, the unstable slopes, into the ravine bottom to raise the bottom, creating a nice wide floodplain area where we're going to vegetate with local trees and shrubs that we ourselves grow in our nurseries. So the fill material will be stabilized with this restoration, with stabilized stabilization coconut core fiber stabilization matting, and then planted with long-term plantings. The restored floodplain will provide a filter for nutrients and sediment from the surrounding agricultural properties. And during storm events, the flow will spread across the restored floodplain, and it's anticipated that the small dynamic channels will form over time within the floodplain area, which will create a diverse habitat.
Can I ask you a question? Who are you applying? Are you applying to Department of Natural Resources or?
Yes.
For this project?
Yeah, so go ahead.
No, that was my question. I mean, you're giving a real great explanation of what you're going to do, but I think that you could probably save that for the.
Sure.
For them.
Sure, yeah, we weren't sure how much
Look,
detail. We weren't sure how much detail you guys would want to see as far as like the actual design approach. So, from a very generic standpoint, we're basic, we were out there yesterday. We had a pre-application meeting with Maryland Department of Environment, and I guess not, the Army Corps didn't show up, but, and while we were out there, I think the critical thing to know is that we're standing on the edge of the woods that is adjacent to, so the county owns a hayfield adjacent to the museum, and then you have, the woods starts right at the top of the slope that drops into the ravine to the stream. And there are multiple ravines that have migrated up to the field edge. And if you walked up to the edge of the woods, you would be standing on a 28-foot cliff dropping down to the bottom of the stream, and that is actively migrating towards the field. So if you're standing at the field, the ground is collapsing and moving landward. And our goal is to reestablish that forest floor, stabilize this, and prevent all of that sediment from the migrating banks moving downstream into the wetlands that we've restored, and then ultimately going into Turner's Creek and filling it with sediment. So, and basically the approach is, without getting into a massive, a long design explanation, the site is completely balanced, other than we will have to bring in a little bit of rock for the very top in order to basically get from the field edge to the grade that we need to get to. We need to use rock so that slope is stable. So there'll be like a rock cascade, and then we're just creating a wider, more stable slope down to the valley floor. And we will include log grade controls to kind of keep that soil in place, and then plant it in trees.
Look, I think I think we're all about trying to keep sediment out of the Chesapeake Bay and all the wetlands, and it's a great initiative. Obviously, if you're here to get a letter of support from us, I think I'm safe in saying we're fine with that, unless John, you have more.
No, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, right. I don't want you to. You would be better saving this
Sure.
this whole explanation for the people that's gonna fund your project.
Sure,
but,
sure.
I
Howard, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I kind of know that area pretty good, and I know, and I know the neighbor who just purchased the.
Yeah,
the-
Mr. Zook.
Correct. What is his take on the project?
Yeah, so I've been out there, so oddly.
I know that it's going to be a very time constrained for him to give a letter of approval would be my guess. In other words, not during a certain time of year.
Oh, yeah, so we obviously, whenever we do work on, land, we work around the landowners, needs, et cetera. So often, we're working outside of hunting season, so the big hiccup, and that doesn't apply to this project. So luckily, this is all, ephemeral stream channels, so if we were working in the main stem, we would have a time of year restriction, but we don't here. So we can work in the spring and summer and avoid hunting season.
So what is Mr. Zook, does he support the project?
Yeah, so we've been out there a couple times. They're excited to kind of fix, because the
That's all
ravines
I-
are just as bad
that's
on
all
their
I need
side,
to
if
know.
not worse.
That's all I
yeah.
need to know.
We'll be giving the same presentation to them, but,
Right.
but yeah,
That's all I need.
they are supportive.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the support letter, and now we sign that. And how soon do you need the letter?
As long as we have it before we apply in early December, I guess, be the second week of December, I think we actually have to
So
submit
if
the
we sign
application.
it today and then get it to you, it's fine.
That's fine, yep, and I think I sent a draft version that you guys can modify as needed, and then, if you put it on county letterhead, that'd be perfect.
It's already done.
All right.
Got a motion, do I have a
Second.
Got a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye, all opposed. The ayes have it, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you guys very much.
Good luck to you.
Appreciate it.
I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, all right.
I
He was in his zone. He was in his zone, Ronnie.
was very interested. When you started out showing what the problem was, that's about all I needed to see.
There you go.
But, good luck to you.
Appreciate it, guys, thank you.
Now we have Mr. Herb Dennis, who is our warden, and Steve Wallace, captain of the Kent County Detention Center, here on substance use disorder telehealth services amended and restated agreement. That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Good morning, sir. How y'all doing? I actually brought Sergeant Shepard here with us too, so we can start actually getting him trained. Actually come in front of commissioners too, since I might be out for a little while. So I think we need, instead of me just being here, we're trying to get him implemented in this too, okay?
Very good.
Okay. We do have two actions in front of you. It's going to be, the first one is the one that you first talked about, is University of Maryland Psychiatric Associated Opioid Use Disorder. I'll read some of the background information. Update MOU with Maryland Psychiatric Associated to include Prime Care instead of WellPath of Kent County Detention Center, medical provider to screen patients for the treatment program. This MOU complements and does not amend the modified, and does not amend or modify the agreement already in place for the grant-funded opioid use disorder initiative treatment. So what we're trying to do is WellPath was actually wrote into this agreement, and we're just trying to change and put our medical vendor or Prime Care into this MOU agreement. So we're just asking for a signature saying that we can keep using the Maryland psychiatric treatment with Prime Care instead of using WellPath initiative, which was signed into this agreement.
WellPath was our previous provider.
Yes,
So we're just changing providers is what we're doing.
yes.
We've already changed the provider, so now the paperwork's.
We're
following.
memorializing it in writing.
Exactly.
Yeah, just changing words.
Very limited on the universe of providers out there for this service. I think they made a
You know,
diligent
Gordon,
attempt.
I read something in one of your reports recently, and it said that almost every, I think that's the words you used, almost every person that's brought into your detention center will show fentanyl in its system.
Correct.
That's pretty sad.
It's very sad.
That's a sad statistic. And, so it's pretty fair to say, because I've, been around right a while, and I remember you know, we never even had a drug problem until, unfortunately, when we come back, a lot of boys come back from Vietnam and stuff, and they started, and then college kids started experimenting with pot and that stuff, and we've grown to where we are today. That's pretty, it's fair to say we lost that war on drugs everybody talked about for many, many years, but it's a sad state of affairs, I think. That's, the statistic shows that's the case today. I don't know. So, that was just a comment that had nothing to do with you, but that's hard to read.
It's very serious.
And then when you hear, like it's hundreds of thousands of, 100,000 people in the country die of that every year. You would think a civilized country would take something like that a lot more serious than it does.
Yes. I think you got a good perception. I think money is probably involved with fentanyl. They made it illegal now to actually for people just to buy it. But we do have a drug problem. People do, they use it for everything now.
But look, ever since I've been, for a lot of years, I've heard this, well, we got this war on drugs. We lost that a long time ago. Anyhow, back to your, I didn't mean to get off track, but I read that 2 or 3 times when I saw that in your report, and I thought, that must be a mistake, but it's not a mistake.
You have Captain Wallace and
Sure.
Sergeant Shepard who actually get to actually deal with these gentlemen when they come in. They see it every day. We test everybody who come into the detention center. It's not only just fentanyl, it's mixed on everything that they use pretty much nowadays. And it's very dangerous for the staff when they actually come inside the detention center. So if they have this,
Supposed to be the brightest and one of the best countries in the world, and we allow that to happen in this country. It's sad.
very sad.
We can't figure that out. I don't know. It's,
Do you think we want to?
I don't know.
But we do.
We
I understand
do.
what you're saying.
We
I do. I would love to see it, but obviously there's other things going on that I'm not aware of, but it's, well, John's dealt with it all his life, but, anyhow, back to you.
Back to the warden.
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion to approve the updated memorandum of understanding to include Prime Care and continue the agreement with the Maryland Psychiatry Associates for FY '24.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Very good. Next.
Thank you, sir.
The second one we have is a updated MOU for the Maryland Treatment Center, who actually provides our addiction counseling to the offenders on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This year, they've increased from $8,000 a quarter to $10,000 a quarter. However, luckily, the OUD program is being grant funded. We reached out to 17 providers, and Maryland Treatment Center was the only one that would do telehealth services, so we've been pretty fortunate and pretty blessed to have them. And so far, it's been very well receptive by staff and offenders. So we'd like to continue with the Maryland Treatment Center with your approval, of course. It's just updating the MOU where the costs increased due to staffing and inflation. They've went up 25% from $8,000 to $10,000, which grant funding is helping us dramatically. So
So the extra $2,000 is going to be included in the grant funding.
Yes.
yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the Maryland Treatment Center's MOU to provide counseling services for the Kent County Detention Center Opiate Use Disorder Treatment Initiative for the remainder of FY '24 budget cycle.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck with your,
Thank you.
whatever, getting ready to take you away for a little while. Good luck with that.
Thank you, sir.
Before you leave, we were all told yesterday that it is 25-year in the county policy,
Thank you, sir.
so,
Thank you. Yep.
As always, thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I'll see you on the 20th.
I'll see you on the 20th.
I've been asked to attend the staff meeting with the detention center
Oh,
to talk about the regional jail concept.
I got you. Good. Mr. Bill Mackey. Going to schedule a hearing for the wharf at Handy's Point.
Yes, sir. So, the Department of Planning, Housing, and Zoning received an application for a growth allocation from the wharf at Handy's Point. That application was presented before your Planning Commission on November 2nd, 2023, and it did receive a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. That letter is included in your packet. The county's growth allocation policy requires a public hearing before this body can approve growth allocations. And just to sort of set the table, when an applicant comes with a growth allocation application, once it comes to this body, the application becomes the county's. So the county will make the actual final application to the state. So that's part of the reason why we need your approval to go forward with this process. This is really at your initiative to whether you would entertain such an application. And also, this item before you allows a public hearing to be scheduled and advertised in the newspapers. So this is asking for your authorization. I understand because of newspaper deadlines, an ad has already been set up, and there's a proposal that can always be pulled if you don't decide to entertain this application. So that's helpful. I know county attorney has the notice prepared so that you can know what you're approving, so.
And I'm prepared to read this into the record to take care of that formality. And what Mr. Mackey says is accurate, that you pass a resolution for growth allocation, and then it goes up to the Critical Areas Commission in the state of Maryland for approval. And once they approve it, it becomes effective. And although this is initiated by an applicant, this would be a county resolution. You might remember we had something like this, and I think Commissioner Fithian goes back to Drayton Manor. We had something similar to that in the process.
There's also one for Betterton's wastewater treatment plant
That's correct, yes,
when they needed to upgrade.
yes. So unless Mr. Mackey has anything further, I can read this into the record.
I do have one
Okay.
sort of notation. We learned this week that Critical Area Commission has changed its interpretation of how it applies things, so we won't need to apply for 52 acres. We can merely apply for the 26 acres. The double allocation process, which was in effect when we were originally applying for things earlier, they've come up with a new approach, so really you only have to apply once.
So we got something in our favor.
A small savings, yes. So,
About that.
We'll
Yeah.
take it.
Because it was going to go, because the fact that it was going to go basically 2 degrees higher.
Right.
You had to double the allocation, but they're not going to make you do that now.
So you can go from RCA to IDA
with a single allocation.
in one allocation.
Yep.
That makes a
And
lot of
That's
sense.
definitely been a change that they've
Which was
implemented since we last
never
applied.
really an issue with us. I mean, we've got plenty of it. We got like, if I'm not mistaken, like 1,200 acres worth of growth allocation, and we're only asking to use, was going to be the worst case was 56, or 52, now it's 26.
Right, yes.
Very
Being a
good.
peninsula helps a lot of.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Entertain a motion.
Does he need to read this first?
Oh,
No,
well, no, you want to
actually-
schedule the public hearing,
Yep.
and then I'll read
I'll make
the
the
notice, once you've officially scheduled it. So
I would like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing to review the growth allocation application submitted by the wharf at Handy's Point.
Second.
Had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
And I will
So,
read.
so thankfully you approved that because now we're ready for the next.
Right, because it might be a little late to pull this, because it's gonna, the notice is going to be published in the Kent County News on November 16th, which is 2 days from today. So let me read this into the record. In accordance with the Kent County, Maryland adopted growth allocation policy, County Commissioners of Kent County will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 28th, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the County Commissioners' hearing room located at the R. Clayton Mitchell Jr. Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, on a proposed application for site plan and growth allocation for the wharf at Handy's Point, requesting 52 acres of allocation for the approximately 26 acres currently designated as resource conservation area to be redesignated as intensely developed area, which requires 2 rounds of growth allocation, which we will clarify this at the time, again, of the public hearing, as you've just clarified this today. So, as Mr. Mackey said, at the time this was prepared, our understanding was the process was a little different. And this is to adopt for a portion of map 19 parcel 102, which is located in the 3rd election district and zoned RCD, Resource Conservation District. If you require communication assistance, please contact the Commissioner's office at 410-778-4600 or visit Maryland Relay at mdrelay.org by November 22nd, 2023. Copy of the file is available in the Kent County Department of Planning, Housing, and Zoning, located at 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, during regular business hours, Monday through Friday, from 8:30 to 4:30. And this is by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland. Again, Mr. Mackey, at the public hearing, if you could again clarify, just like you did today, if you could do that at the time of the public hearing, that would be appropriate, given the notice was published under the rules as they were and what we believe them to be at the time that this was prepared.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. One more thing, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. All right. I was at the planning board meeting, the last one you had, when it was announced that Mr. Billy Sutton is resigning.
Yes.
Turning his resignation. We have to come up with a name to replace him, and then it's my opinion, my understanding that by the end of December, there will be another opening.
Yes, sir.
Or can we, well, I don't want to give that name out publicly, but
I've requested a closed session, I believe, on the 12th of December,
very good. Okay.
so that you all can discuss these matters.
No, you know, we can recommend someone, but I don't want to do it in open session in case there's an issue about, it's better to talk about it in closed session, but, okay. So you will be looking for someone to fill Mr. Sutton's,
We have multiple interested parties. We have a number of interest forms. There's 2 positions available and more than 2 interested parties, so.
Sure,
I know
sure.
those will all be presented to you. Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of interest in those positions, and I guess we'll take turns as who comes up with a name, and we want to try to keep some type of a balance in there, I think, and not reading too much into who gets what appointments, but I know there will be a lot of eyes on on those decisions. But, so, when did you say we're going to have is it the next meeting?
No, it's a December meeting. I don't have, I think it's the 12th, whatever the middle one is. I know it's not the 19th.
Okay.
Is that?
Okay, as long as
Is that
we.
the right date?
That's,
Yeah.
that was
Okay.
my only reason
Yes.
for raising it. I was wondering where, because I'd like for we'd like whoever we're going to pick to get started. We don't want you to be going shorthanded no longer than you have to.
Right. Thank you very much, yeah. And you all can also suggest names and add it. Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
That's correct.
good. Okay.
All right.
This past Sunday, I was at the Village of Kennedyville for a meeting with some of the residents there. And I just want to compliment Bill. He was there. It was a cold Sunday morning, but I'm very, very thankful that you were there to answer some of those difficult questions that I had no idea about. And I appreciate you being there.
I enjoyed the meeting. I thought it was really productive.
He did kind of embarrass the county a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Mrs. Herman brought in a container of chocolate chip cookies for everyone, and he stood there and almost emptied it. But Billy, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, sir, very much.
And
My
since you
pleasure.
brought that up, I came through Kennedyville today, and they're Talkie is,
They're running cake.
Talkie is got a lot of activity right there. They're right at the entrance of that.
For them.
Go.
So,
Very good.
And I did report out about the deed being signed and moving forward.
Thank you, sir.
And I unfortunately forgot that meeting.
we got
I
lucky that
apologize.
that previous owner decided just to sign, because that could have drug on and on.
Yeah.
He's been very cooperative,
But
and I
I'm
think
just-
he's happy to get any
I'm sure he's
liabilities off
relieved,
his
but
hands.
still,
Yeah,
it's-
but
yeah.
he's been very cooperative.
Right, exactly. It may have been, under different circumstances, even hard to find the previous owner, thankfully.
And if I can add something, I think the folks there at the meeting, the HOA president and the folks were very, very appreciative of all the things that this body has done to help the village with their improvements that are lacking. And although the Department of Public Works was not represented, many of those projects were done by them to, help them with the stormwater management pond and some of the parking issues and replanting trees that had died. So I know that Mike and Dan did a lot of work to make that happen in conjunction with you all sort of directing those things. So they were very pleased. So it was nice. It was nice to be there and witness that.
It was nice of you to attend on a Sunday like that.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have more to do with Wharf and Handy's?
Nope, we're good.
Okay.
Yep.
So we can,
We can move on to alcohol
okay.
and tobacco.
Miss Bonnie Pearsall, or is there, the inspector at Kent Alcohol and Tobacco Enforcement?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have some license update. For White Swan Tavern, the board approved White Swan Tavern for a Class B country inn beer, wine, and liquor license with contingencies. Happy to report the business has corrected the issues reported by the fire marshal, and that all contingencies have been met, and the license was issued on November 1st. Upon approval of their application and being approved by the board, they have submitted a revised floor plan for their establishment. The new proposed floor plan is attached for your review. The revised floor plan does not add any additional square footage to the floor plan. It only adds areas where the alcohol can be served. They have been added in red on the provided request and sketch. We are asking for approval for the floor plan for White Swan Tavern.
I would like to make a motion to approve the revised floor plan for the White Swan Tavern.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Jim Miller,
Good morning, gentlemen.
HR Director,
I had to check to make sure it was still good morning.
Employment Contracts.
Yeah, for some time now, the county has had employment contracts with senior staff, director-level positions. I learned earlier this year that directors who were hired in 2023 were not asked to sign contracts. I looked at the existing contract that was in place, had some suggestions that, and did a draft that I shared with Shelley and then with Tom. Tom reviewed it, had some modifications he wanted to make to it. So I'm here today simply to ask for approval to implement the revised contract and then have the current group of directors sign new agreements. Primarily, the changes had to do with ensuring that the confidentiality requirements for the directors and the non-disclosure requirements were clearly spelled out to make sure that what the directors see and hear and do as county employees remains the business of the county. That's the long and short of it. Tom?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I think it's an appropriate agreement, and I think we addressed some things that weren't included in prior agreements to make this, I think, a better document. And also, it's consistent with what we've done in the past. We really didn't change anything in concept between what we've done in the past. We just kind of
But it
cleaned it up a
shortened
little
up a
bit
bit,
and updated it.
Yeah, I would say we shortened it up a bit and clarified some of the language, spelled it out a little differently. But Shelley was comfortable with the revisions. Tom did his usual good work on it, and that's why I'm here this morning.
Right, I think staff recommends approval. We believe it's an appropriate document.
So we're basically asking for approval of the template,
Right,
and then we'll come forward with the actual
right,
contracts for
right.
individual.
When you have the actual hire and we do a contract, it's going to go before you before it's approved. This is the form, essentially, this is an updated form that we're going to draft the contracts off of, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel every time we hire senior level staff. So we have a basic contract template now that you would be approving. And then when there's an individual hire, when you have the particulars in there, that person's not going to be on board until you approve the contract for that person.
And the good thing, the document that I looked at, there's not any room there for anyone's interpretation. It's pretty clear exactly what is expected and what all is going to be provided.
Yep, that was the
I
goal.
agree.
That's the
That-
idea.
That was the
So-
point, the previous one, there was some,
Are we going to go back and ask the ones that were hired, the department heads, our longstanding department heads, to sign a revised copy?
That's would be my
Just to-
recommendation, that I
Just to
would
clean
bring
everything up?
everybody that's on staff that Shelley proposes to sign this agreement, that we have everybody, the ones that already have signed documents that are in force, and the group of several that haven't signed documents as yet, that everybody do it, and we can pick a date,
Yeah.
12/1/11, whatever we want to do.
So those
But
will
I'd
go
have
back
it
in
all
front of-
consistent across the board.
Right, and the old ones, I think, they weren't like evergreen, there was like an expiration on them, so I think that we do need to take care of that, so everybody's on contract.
and we want to replace the contracts that are currently in existence with this new
Right.
and
Yeah.
improved contract.
I'd like to make a motion that the revised employment contract for the senior staff be approved and implemented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mike Mose, Director of Public Works,
No.
County Roads Division.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just have one item for you today. This is something we've done annually. We're requesting approval to piggyback on a state highway contract with guardrails, et cetera, to provide guardrail installations and repairs throughout the county. Note that this also includes Clark Road. After the Clark Road project is complete, we have this company will come and put the guardrails in. So we have a budget of $80,000 FY '24 for guardrail work. So we'll be utilizing those funds for various guardrail repairs and Clark Road. As I said, we've done this with guardrails, et cetera, probably for the last 4 years that I know of. It's a competitive contract that State Highway does, so they get a lot of the work down here and give us a good price. Any questions?
I have none.
I'd like to make a motion to piggyback the Maryland MDOT SHA contract with guardrails, et cetera, incorporated for installation and repairs to Kent County guardrails in the amount of $80,000 with the same pricing terms and conditions under an existing state highway contract number 477D21426 for FY '24 that expires on 6/30/24. This contract shall have no renewal option.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Sorry about those contract numbers. We could try to get them easier from the state.
Say it
The
again.
contract numbers, having to say, oh, those contract numbers. Try to keep it easy. That's all I have. Do you have any questions or anything?
I do have one question.
Sure.
The sewage, water and sewer, the comprehensive water and sewer plan, does it have to be renewed ever so often, like our planning, comprehensive planning?
Yeah, there's recommendations to review it to see if any changes need to be made. So it would be coming up, I think, in a year or two. Probably what we'll be looking at doing is we have to do an amendment to the comprehensive water and sewer plan to deal with the Millington wastewater treatment plant. So I'm trying to.
How long,
pull that time.
how often is that supposed to take place?
I think it's 5 years, Shally, I think is what I remember. Yeah. Sometimes, you're supposed to look at it annually just to update, but we don't have that much stuff going in. So, and we pretty much have an idea of the few that we do, but I believe it's 5 years. So 2018 was the last one.
Have we renewed it every 5 years? Do we?
No.
It hadn't been done, so
But it's periodically been done. It may not
Yes.
have hit all the exact timelines, but yes, I remember when the last one came forward. It's been since I've been here, and that was basically a dusting off the previous
Right.
one.
You'll see some counties that are obviously very active. They're going to update theirs because of all the stuff that comes through. Other counties that don't have a lot of activity and everything, it's just a lot of work to go through for really not changing much of anything. So, but the recommendations and the thing is every 5 years. But you can go into the website for MDE, and you can see a lot of counties haven't updated theirs for a long time.
well, you probably know why I'm asking it is because it drives me crazy that we're subsidizing our water and sewer for the county is subsidizing, and I know we can't get away from that, and the trade-off was worth it because we've made a lot of improvements throughout the county with failed septic systems and stuff. But when I see a denied access line, that we have allocation that we could be taking in revenue, helping to pay for the system, we're saving, it's a denied access line for no reason I can come up with. And I'm talking about a lot of them. Lover's Lane, going into Millington. We have one at Allen's Lane. I mean, we had a police officer come in here whose mother one time had, or still does, grandmother, had a parcel of land that she was going to give him a lot to build a house on, and we had to turn him down. For what reason? I can take it. I can understand it, like I've said in the past. If we're having a denied access line because this farm that it's running by, just like the one across from Toll Park, that's a denied access line because that farm, if I'm not mistaken, is in some type of preservation or something. I understand that. I wouldn't dare want to, but when you got a denied access line, and I, as the president of the Board of Commissioners, don't know why in the world it's a denied access line. I don't think we should be stuck with that for life when we're constantly turning down people. I know of probably 3 properties on Lover's Lane that would love to hook up that they own property, but we're saying no to them. And when we're saying no to them, it's keeping us from having extra customers. Revenue, it's what, $18,000 every time we approve one, the hookup fee, isn't it roughly that?
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer. Yeah, most places we've got is just sewer. But if nobody can answer these questions, I'd like to see us take a look at it so we're not stuck with it. You know, if we've got the allocation and we're just sitting on it, we could let that allocation go and we'd have revenue. And if it's not going to open up an enormous amount of hookups. And I had a conversation, to be quite frank with you, I had a conversation with the Secretary of Planning for the state. she doesn't understand, of course, she's new, and she pointed that out, that she hasn't been, she took over with the new administration. And, but she said, Ronnie, I don't understand it completely either. I'm gonna have somebody look into it. Because I talked to her about my issues. I don't like to see us turning down revenue for the county, and revenue that'll pay for these systems for a reason that I can't comprehend. I don't know what the reason is, and nobody can explain it to me. And I said, and I asked her, I said, can you talk to me about this? She said, well, I'll tell you. She said, you could renew it, redo it, and it has to come before us, the state. But she said, and if maybe I misunderstood her, and if I did, then I'll retract this. But what I heard her say was, we're gonna comment on it. You don't have to pay any attention to us, but we will comment on it, but that, we don't have the last say. Now, maybe I misunderstood that, but she sat right there and I sat right here, and I thought that's what of course, I don't want to put her on the spot, because she's only had her job for a limited amount of time since the last governorship. But it just the fact that we have people coming in wanting to hook up to these systems, of which we're subsidizing it out of the county's general fund, and we're telling these people no. I don't like telling anybody no unless I got a real good reason, and I can't get a good reason for this.
Well, what gets me is we have capacity that's just sitting there at these plants that we've paid for, that we can't use because of the restrictions on these things. I think one of the things in looking at that process to go ahead, we want to take a look at what the comprehensive plan, the county comprehensive plan says in terms of growth areas, and see how that matches up, and if there's been any changes over the years, and maybe see what might be done there, because those two would have to be in conjunction with each other to go through the process. So if those areas that we're talking about where there's potential development is in a growth area in accordance with the comprehensive plan, then that helps make the argument why we need to get some revisions there. So.
Well, when can we take a look at it? And maybe I'm out here by myself, but it just don't make sense to me. And I just, when something doesn't make sense to me, I just can't let it go. I want to get to the bottom of it. And this doesn't make sense to me.
I think it's important to pull MDE into the conversation, because that's where we've had I don't want to use a derogatory term, but kind of a roadblock.
Yes.
And when they've given us money for the installation of these lines, they're the ones that have dictated that they need to be denied access.
Yeah.
Is there a way to ask for, obviously, a meeting?
Yeah.
And to ask for them to consider our appeal to open it up a little bit?
I think that would have to occur. I think that's the.
I agree with Shelley on this, and I know a number of years ago, and Commissioner Fifth, you may remember this because this goes back, we had a meeting with top MDE officials in here. Wayne Morris was here, I was here, and we raised these issues then, and their response was generally no, 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 this is the way it has to be. But I think it's worth, given all the points that have been brought up today and have been brought up over time, I think it's worth the effort to get the officials back in here and to, plead the case again, to see if we can get some movement.
Because take the one Lover's Lane, for example. There's allocations that ain't nobody using them. They're hooked up with these little pieces of property but it looks like to me we're the county water and wastewater is losing some revenue. We're not, but I remember what Tom's talking about. It was a big to-do back then, and that's going back 20 years or so.
Close to it.
They were talking about the, everybody was worried about all the sprawl in Kent County. That's where that thing, that place up there too, before you're going into, Millington, everybody was worried that, we were gonna run these water and sewer lines, and it was gonna increase, the sprawl was gonna take over. Well, that's 20 years ago. To be saddled with something that took place, things change in 20 years. And I would like to invite somebody from MDE here to talk with us about it. Instead of us just kicking this thing back and forth, I'd rather hear from MDE.
Yeah,
If we could reach out to someone and have them come here and explain to us, so at least if nobody else understands, I understand. Because I don't, like I said, when I don't understand something, it bothers me, especially when it doesn't make sense to me.
We had areas where we had to get lines to areas that had failing septics. And so they had to pass from point A to point B. And
Chesterville is the prime example.
Yeah.
That, we run that line down where that Nelson boy requested to pass them houses to go to a little development of some lots in Chesterville. But the only way they would let us do that, that had to be a denied access line.
Because they didn't want.
What sense that makes today, I don't know, but.
Yeah, they didn't want development along that corridor, or they didn't want farms subdivided. And that was, as you said, the sprawl and all that was a consideration. And maybe we explained, there's not pressure on development today. I mean, it's kind of the opposite, where we're trying to get additional users on the system so we can be more fair in the, I don't say more fair, but the more users you have on the system, the less cost it is per user.
No question about it. That's exactly what I'm saying. Instead of, we would be decreasing the subsidy that comes out of our general fund.
And Mike, is it fair to say too that when you have a plant that's built for X capacity and you're operating much less than that, it's not as efficient as if you were going, closer to capacity?
I mean, the plants that we have are operating within a range that they're doing it. My point is that we built that plant at an expense for a certain amount of capacity that we wanted to happen. The logic that I think is that all these denied access lines were related to when sewer was extended for problem areas where failing systems were. But all this time that's passed by, you haven't seen the sprawl, and there's a desire now, having this capacity, to have some organized areas of development for this and utilize that in some of those areas that we're talking about.
Well, if it's denied access, it wouldn't be sprawl. I mean, you can't have sprawl if it's denied access.
Right, and that's why, that's the whole issue, that there's no houses going up and nobody connecting because it's a denied access line.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't be sprawl. I mean, you guys
Well,
are
But if
going
you
around in
let people
circles
start
here.
connecting, you may get sprawl.
Absolutely.
Well, only till but we've only got limited.
Right.
We're probably not, I'll bet you if you add up all the allocation in all those areas, I bet it ain't 20 or 30.
They didn't put those rules in place for Kent County.
Right.
It was a statewide thing.
Right, that's
But
correct.
for us not to be able to take advantage of 20 or 30.
Right.
But we're paying for it. I know how it's set up with the sewer system in Rock Hall. We're paying for those we're paying for the amount of people we have hooked up to it, and with the maintenance and operation stuff, we pay a certain amount based on, but I think we ought to be able to use what we got. I don't want to do something that's gonna turn something upside down, but we got a handful of things here. 20 of those things, maybe it is $300,000 or $400,000 plus a customer for the rest of the time that they're there. I mean, that adds up into money that we wouldn't have to take out of the general fund to subsidize the water and sewer projects.
Plus, it's good for the environment.
It's good for the environment, exactly right. And for us, at that time that deputy come in here and asked to be able to use his grandmother's lot on Allen's Lane, which is it was a great big lot. I know exactly where it's talking about. And we had to tell him no. It just really, that bothered me.
One thing to consider would be, and I don't know if MDE would go for this, but you say, okay, there's lots of record that abut the line. And if it's an existing lot of record, as of this date or whatever, then you get an allocation. And that may say, if you say you get an allocation and that's all you get, so we're not subdividing lots and creating, sprawl, but if you own property that abuts the line, you can get an allocation, so you could put a
As long as
dwelling.
the allocations last. When they're gone, they're gone. Because unless we build a bigger plant, which I don't think is in the cards. But I just want to be able to use what we got. That's all.
I've said this before, I've never liked that term denied access line. I've always felt they should be restricted access lines. So we have some control, but it's not a zero, nothing off of them.
But it was all about sprawl when those things
Yes,
were
that's
developed.
that's
That's
all
what
it
it
is.
was. They were
Yes.
afraid that county
sprawl,
was gonna
y'all,
take
was
off
the
and
phrase.
you wouldn't be able to get through here.
Right.
That's not the case. If you could check in and find out if somebody from MDE would visit us one day and talk with us, I'd appreciate it.
All right.
Another consideration is there was something that was pre me starting with Kent County, but I do remember the conversation. It was required of all counties to put in septic tier maps. And Kent County got an exception, and I don't remember exactly what the exception was based on. But if we do get some sort of reprieve from these laws, we'll probably then have to put in that septic tier map.
It was a tier 1, 2, I think there were
Yes.
3 tiers, and
Yeah.
where the development was going, and
Yep.
we're trying to restrict the number of septic systems and where they were
Right.
going. So it's all, again, all related to development and sprawl. But I think that, like I said, the number of years that have gone by that we haven't had it should have addressed their concerns at that time that they were doing it. And if we tie it to the capacity that we have in the plants, because it's difficult to expand these plants anymore because of the Chesapeake Bay diet, that we can use that as the stop point and then utilize that capacity to benefit for, just as you had mentioned about revenue and our costs that we have, and see if we can try to make that argument work. It'd be interesting to see if some other county, through talking to MDE, has gone through this same process. I don't know.
It just, all I'm looking for is to be able to use the existing allocations we have sitting on the shelf.
Right.
When it's gone, it's gone. Then we know we say no. Then we got a reason to say no.
Right.
Because we don't have any more. But to have it and have to say no, just drives me crazy. Just my pet peeve.
Well, it's just something we got stuck with.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It is, now you make fun. Yeah, I do.
Thanks.
Very good, thank you.
Mike, before you go, I actually touched on it a little bit with Bill when he was here, but there were some very appreciative people in the village of Kennedyville for what the Public Works Department has done with the trees and even in some of the area that really the county doesn't have a whole lot to do with. They were very, very appreciative. And also, I think it's Chris. Chris has been working with Mrs. Herman regarding the sand and the
Chris Unitas.
pipes.
Yeah, we have a plumber coming out to
They do.
put that pipe, drain in to get that flushed.
So they're very appreciative.
Yeah, Krista's been good. It's good to have, she's very involved in her HOA. I think from your discussions at the thing, there was probably a couple of things that she was working through some of the residents in terms of parking issue and things like that. So,
There was a lengthy discussion about parking.
yes, so that's why I forwarded that email back through you. So
They're hoping that maybe with phase 2 of that project, at some point, that they can have some off-site parking.
Yeah, so, but yeah.
Which was part of the initial plan.
Yep, and yeah, so it's nice working with somebody that's got that interest and drive to try to get things squared away, just as we want it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we take a real quick recess?
Yep. We're gonna take a recess for 5 or 10 minutes and we'll start up in about 10 minutes. Let's do that.
We should do this every time at noon. This feels good to stand up. We should do this every time we hit the noon bar.
2-hour break.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm gonna hit the head then if we're gonna do a 2-minute break.
Take your time. We ain't gonna start until you're back.
For this week's edition.
What,
You want to smile or what do
I
you
didn't
want?
want to tear anything up, so I made her come over because I was stopping the
Not
recording.
a mug shot?
No,
I
no
was
mug
looking.
shot. No
All right, so when they go back,
What we're talking about.
we're going to hit record. So everybody just, they'll see, they'll see exactly what they see right now, but there's no, yeah, there's no.
No, Queen Anne's. Yes, Queen Anne's and then Caroline. Caroline, we're still seeing everything.
Ronnie, what do you do for Thanksgiving? Do all the grandkids come to your house? Yeah. So your wife's got some cooking to do.
Yeah, we have all the family, like, all except their one daughter lives up in New Jersey. She doesn't come, her and her husband, 2 kids, they don't come home, but they do come down for Christmas. They spend Thanksgiving with her people, his people up there, and then they come down and spend Christmas Eve and all with us. But it's a house full.
When I was growing up, my parents hosted Thanksgiving for years. So we had aunts and uncles and cousins, and of course, we had a nice-sized dining room, and they put all the, the leaves in the middle of the table to make the table.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And me and my sister and my cousins, we were all at the kids' table in the kitchen. So we sat around the kitchen table, and everybody else, all the adults were in the big table.
I got you.
And then I guess by attrition, as people died or whatever, then as kids got older, one by one, we got to sit up at the at the big table.
How about that?
That's been a long time since had that.
Yeah, it's getting longer all the time.
We didn't have that problem before.
Turkey, though, that's my all-time favorite meal. I just love it.
I enjoy it too.
Yeah.
On the agenda is the county administrator.
Okay, thank you, and I'll be the first to say good afternoon. Today I have two items for you. The first of which is a request that you received this past year as well. This is from Worcester County, who is also a code county like Kent County. And last year they went to the General Assembly to ask for the enabling legislation so that they could increase their hotel tax. In order to do so, the General Assembly would have to open up the same courtesy to all code counties. Because we are one of these code counties, Worcester County feels very strongly, and I'm sure that they're right, that it'll go further in the General Assembly if all the existing code counties agree to write a letter of support. So again, this would be, if it were approved by the General Assembly, it would enable code counties to be able to increase hotel tax. It wouldn't require them to do so.
It enables one of the individual counties to do it, and the rest don't have to do it. It's not
Each
telling
county-
us.
Correct, each
Right.
county could make their own decision on that.
And I don't personally have a problem with that at all.
I don't either. Howard,
And-
you good?
Yes, sir.
And you did support this request the last time it came
Yeah.
around.
I'd like to make a motion to send a letter of support enabling legislation to increase county room tax as presented.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
And it's that time of year again where we start dusting off which commissioner is going to represent the county at which meeting. The MACO Legislative Committee is one such committee. Usually we do a massive discussion in December for all boards and committees, but they would like their response by Thursday, November 30th of this year. So they are looking to find out who would like to be the primary and alternate to serve on the Legislative Committee for the General Assembly session of 2024.
Any need to change?
I'm fine with it the way it is.
I think we leave it the way it is.
Okay.
Good with me.
And then under County Administrator Report, I have one item, and that is that the Chair of the Millington Planning Commission has submitted a letter as with regards to the proposed draft mixed-use process. Basically, my words, not theirs, is they're requesting basically veto power instead of just a collaborative discussion with them. So no action necessary, that's just to let you know.
Now we have, this is the period we have at our meetings where we have, we're at that time for public comment or media review. Any questions, anybody, concerns? Mike?
My name's down on the list, you can scratch it off. And I should have asked it earlier when we were talking about.
Go on, come up to the microphone, Mike.
So much for scratching.
I should have asked the question earlier, before the commission went into session. Were any letters sent to Ferguson or Jones to invite them here? And if we did, we got a reply and any dates set? Because we're running out of time to the
For
general.
what? What was the
Ron
subject?
had asked.
President,
We had asked that
Speaker of the House.
those letters be sent.
Oh, yes.
And they have been.
Oh, yes,
They have
absolutely.
been.
We
No response
received no
yet?
response. I think, I don't expect any, to be quite honest with you, but I think we had our delegation in here one day, and it was, the comment was made that they did meet with us in Annapolis last year, which was, I think it was a very short time. I don't think we got a chance. I think they're thinking that they gave us that opportunity last year when we went to Annapolis. I disagree, but these letters were sent, and
Okay.
we've asked, and we've received no response.
No response. Yeah, because even though it's just under 2 months left, when you take out the holidays, there's not a hell of a lot of time here that they could come in. All right.
a month.
I mean, not only did we receive the answer, no, we didn't receive anything.
No answer.
No answer.
I think they were sent maybe the first week of October,
It's been a while.
September even maybe.
You know, Westmore gave you his card, maybe it's time to use it.
We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Barb Rhodes?
I think it's good afternoon. Hi. I am requesting that I have a closed session to meet with the commissioners over a personnel matter, and I realize that today is probably very short notice, so if I would be able to be penciled in at the next meeting.
Yes, you contact the office, you have a, and they'll put you on the agenda for the soonest we can get you on there.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we need we have some closed sessions, so I need a,
Are there any other comments?
no, there was no other comments from anybody, I don't guess, nobody signed a sheet anyhow.
I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session under the Annotated Code of Maryland, General Provisions, Article 3-305, B1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluations of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this body, public body, has jurisdiction, and any other personal matter that affects one or more specific individuals, and to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. We will be in closed session.